Welcome back, everyone. Before we get started on my interview, I just wanted to make a couple announcements. One, wanted to first thank everyone for their support. May not be Joe Rogan yet, but we're getting a lot of traction. I've actually been doing it now for an entire year. I've interviewed over, I think, 30 people now. I've had 30 interviews, probably some the same, but some familiar faces to me and new people as well. I just started branching out, so this episode coming up is my first one with an actual business, as well as I have a couple lined up. So stay tuned for those. I'm trying to get bigger and better guests, as well as reach back to those old friends and have those conversations about life, because it keeps changing and the world keeps getting crazier and crazier. My goal with these next couple ones that I'm reaching out to these businesses is not only to promote the ones I'm around, but also to shed light on, nostalgic feelings for those that grew up around the same area as me, as well as show that communal support that I think is dire right now. We need that community support to lift each other up. So please keep up the support. Thank you so much. Keep spreading the love. Keep sharing. Keep liking. Keep listening. And have a great day. We'll see y'all. Hope you enjoy this episode. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Benny and the Guest. With you, as always, I'm Ben. I have a very special guest today. We're out here. I'm actually in the St. Louis City Museum right now with Maria
Cassilly.
Yeah. Yes. I was trying to figure out how to say both. Can't thank you enough for letting me come out here. Today we're going to talk to Maria just about the City Museum. I know a lot of you that listen are from around these areas. It was kind of an institution to come up here and go as a kid, whether you're from St. Louis or even, I feel like a lot of Missourians just know about it, probably Illinois too, but it's just great to figure it out. So we're going to jump right in. Maria, just give us a little bit about where you're from, kind of where you grew up, and then how you ended up here, kind of,
Sure.
And how that's going for you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah. I'm from St. Louis, born and raised. We started in South City, then moved out to the county. Now my husband and I, we live in the city again. So I started at the museum in 2006, so coming up on 18 years now. Mm-hmm. I actually answered an ad in the newspaper. They were looking, I know. They were looking for somebody to work in Art City, and my undergrad's in art. And so I actually came to apply for that. They found out that I had register experience and sent me down in the gift shop. So ended up there happily. And I was there for, years and years. And then my husband and I actually owned a couple restaurants here for about 10 years. And then now I'm working on tours, special exhibits, and events, and then trying to come up with an archive for the history of the museum. So.
Oh, wow.
A little bit of a lot of things.
Yeah. Is that hard working on the archive thing? Is that digging, you got to find random stuff laying around, or?
So having worked here for so long, I actually got my graduate degree in library and information science. I moved away for a couple of years to do that, but I came back every summer and worked here. So sort of, that's also in my background.
Yeah.
Since in my
you're a jack of all trades. Yeah.
I know, I do. Yeah. The working at the museum, I feel lends itself to that type of personality too. Yes. I think. But yeah, it's hard. It was not something that was done consistently throughout the years. Mm-hmm. So it's been really interesting to go back and, we're trying to interview people and gather photos and any videos we have. And then we're trying to be a little bit more deliberate about it going forward. Because one of the great things about the museum is that we're always changing and always building things. So that's one of the best parts about the museum, but it also means that it means that there's a different experience every time you come in, but it also means that it's always changing. So, it looked one way 10 years ago, it looks completely different now. So it's kind of cool to try and go through and document all that.
Jeez.
It's a whole thing.
It's cool though. To speak on that, we're on, did you say the 10th floor?
Yeah.
I didn't see if the buttons were.
Yes.
Yes. We're on I didn't even know this thing had 10 floors. I knew it was high, but so And it's 11 basically, right? Like all the way to the top, or is
Yeah,
that
the roof. The roof is the 11th floor.
Yeah.
I say in air quotes. There's also a 12th floor, like kind of mezzanine level on the roof, and then the Ferris wheel is on the 13th. Technically on the 13th floor. So yeah, it's a lot.
And then like, so I know like the first 4 floors I believe are like the exhibits.
Yeah,
right?
the first. So it's a 10-story building. It was built in 1930. It's from the International Shoe Company.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that we were their warehouse and shipping center. Actually, the hotel right across the street, that was part of that this building's connected to. That was part of it. That was built in 1919. That was their offices and showrooms and stuff like that. Then they, as the company grew, they built this building. So we're coming up on 100 years for the building.
Oh, wow.
And we constantly ask it to do things it was not meant for.
Yeah.
So it's obliged us so far. But so right now, the first through like 4.5 floors are the museum, and then fifth floor is actually lofts, so people live here, which is crazy.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, 5th floor is lofts. 6th and 7th are storage. 8th and 9th is Select Artificial, which is an artificial flower company that were here when Bob and Gail bought the building in '93, and they've just stayed the whole time, which is wild. And then
it's they do flowers?
yeah, it's fake flowers and trees and everything. Yeah, it's very wild. Then before we're on is the 10th floor.
Yeah.
So this was its most recent life was as they do event spaces and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
We had a company, Windows Off Washington, that operated out of here. They left. We took that opportunity to like redo the balconies, the ceilings, the rooftop, all that kind of stuff. So right now we're in the process of wrapping that up, and then hopefully we'll be able to reopen these.
Oh, wow. So you like, this would be for like weddings or like
there's
corporate
big like
events or something?
ballroom. We can check that out later. Yeah,
Oh,
there's
yeah,
a big
yeah.
bunch of ballrooms and
Oh
stuff
my
back there.
gosh.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I know.
You'll be saying that a lot through this interview.
I know. I've already said it like 10 times. I didn't know any of a lot of the stuff. If you could just break it down, like the first, I guess those first 4 floors, if you could, like a general overview, and then up top, what's going on up there as well.
Sure. Yeah. So sort of backtracking, started by 2 artists, Bob and Gail Cassilly. They were a husband and wife team. They bought the building in '93. We ended up opening to the public in '97. It's changed a lot since they first bought it. Their background, artists, but they were also had Cassilly & Cassilly, which was an architecture and sculpture company so they did a lot of work around the St. Louis area. They did some work nationally as well. But for this, they had about 600,000 square feet of space, and most of it was just completely empty.
Oh,
so
wow.
they were just like, oh my God, there's all of this possibilities. Talking to Gail, she was just like talking about when Bob approached the idea to her, and was just like, I've been waiting for this my whole life. This is the craziest opportunity. This will never happen again. We have to do it. So he brought her down. They kind of fell in love with it. And so the first floor is now just this massive installation of mosaics. There's a giant whale sculpture that's just it. Pretty much the way to describe the museum is it's sort of this like huge immersive like surrealist installation. It's these big sculptures. It has a lot of architectural pieces and history from St. Louis, but other cities as well, brought in to kind of create this whole world that we've made for ourselves here. So first floor is mosaics, whale. Second floor, we've got a huge vault from the First National Bank that got gutted. That was located in downtown St. Louis. And so we've got that, the Artquarium. On the third floor, they have the world's largest pencil. So
that's what that was.
We do have
in
the
there.
world's largest
my
pencil.
gosh.
It does, by the way, it is officially the world's largest pencil. We have a certificate we just got from Guinness. And something I did not know, in order to be the world's largest pencil, it does have to be fully functional. So use your notebook when you go back, and you can write with it. There's like lead that goes all the way through, which also makes it insanely heavy. Just the eraser, I think it's 250 pounds.
And the eraser works.
Yeah, it does. It's been through a lot because it's been here since 2007. So we've had people like jumping on it and touching it and dancing on it and everything since then. But and then third floor we have a circus that resides here. They've been here since the museum opened. They're a nonprofit. They do daily shows. They also do classes. Beatnik Bob's, started by an artist named Bill Chrisman, who still lives and works in the St. Louis area. And then fourth floor is like architecture gallery, the Sullivan Gallery, and Art City. So it's
kind of like an artist dream, or like a sanctuary. Like it's got every type of.
We definitely made our own world here, for sure. And it's something that, having been here for a while, you kind of get used to seeing it, and it's cool to talk to other people about it, because like for me, it's an everyday thing.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a crazy space that there's not a whole lot else like it.
Yeah, it's the inside of the building. It almost looks like it morphs with it, though. Like it has its own character to it, and the things you're talking about where it was like, oh, we've added this or we do that stuff. It changes with it, and it just fits perfectly still. You see like the little intricacies, like when I walked up the stairs, and there's like, I think it's like some gargoyle heads or something, and then there's one that the water just trickles out of, and it just catches your eye, and you're just like, oh man, that's.
I was talking to somebody about it yesterday, and it's one of those things that you walk in, you're just immediately struck by just the like immenseness of it all, but it holds up to like close inspection as well, if that makes sense. Like it's like you walk in and it's this huge, like overwhelming overall impression, and then I'm still finding, I don't know if you've been in the caves yet, but
not yet.
We'll check that out. So in the caves, like I'm still finding creatures in the caves, and I'm like, oh, is this new? Because we do add things here. They're like, oh no, it's been there 10 years. And I just missed it completely. So it definitely rewards, the detailed view and taking your time and going through it. And you can find new things constantly, always.
And how about on the roof?
The rooftop has a Ferris wheel. It's a 1940s Ferris wheel, I believe. So it's a vintage Ferris wheel. The water towers, I believe, were up there when they bought the building. We've also got you may have seen the really large dome that's up there.
Yeah.
The dome's actually from the planetarium in the Science Center. They did a remodel like decades ago now.
Oh yeah, the one on the other side of the interstate.
On the other side of 40. And so we got the kind of the bones from that, and then they put that around. And then the praying mantis, which is gigantic, is on top of the dome. That I believe was made for the botanical gardens, and then it was on top of there for a little while. Then it moved down to their Lafayette shop. They had a workshop down in the Lafayette neighborhood, and it was on top of that for a little bit, which must have been crazy driving down just a regular street and seeing this massive praying mantis on the rooftop. And then it ended up finding its final home here. But perhaps the most iconic city museum is the school bus we have that's like halfway off the roof on the corner.
Yeah.
So that one, that's been there for a long time. We're actually in the middle of repainting it. So.
That had to be, I was just imagining the keeping up to code, I guess, on everything has got to be insanely hard, right?
Yeah, it's a little crazy. We so a lot of our artists are certified for like playgrounds and for like theme parks and stuff like that. So it looks a lot crazier than it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like, whether it be the angle of the slides or the height of the railings or, how tall you have to be to go down the slides, we work within that sort of established space.
Do they have, do you guys have like a hired set of architects or like artists, or is it like you contract out for that, or how does that work?
We have a crew. Bob had a crew of people, Cassilly crew, that worked with him during the Cassilly and Cassilly years. A lot of them came over to the museum. We Ricky, who's been here since Cassilly, he's still here. He, if Ricky tells you something cannot be moved, you should just give up immediately. Because Ricky figured out how to get almost all, like he's the person you call. It's like, hey, I have this giant bank vault that's 10 blocks down. How do I get this up here? So he'll figure it out for you. But we've added people. People have come and gone. You know, COVID did, a lot of people decided to maybe retire after that they'd been here for a lot of years, you know, and they kind of took that opportunity. So yeah, we have a lot of really talented people that work here.
Yeah. It speaks for itself.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Is there anything you guys are working on at the moment that's like you have big coming out soon, or is there like...
We don't have an official date set quite yet, but we are planning on opening. We have this section on the 4th floor that isn't open to the public quite yet. That's the labyrinth. So that will be a whole system of like passageways you can go through, and then there's a multi-story slide that'll come down from there and go down to the 2nd floor. The slide's built already. It just gets to get the rest of it. Yeah. So we're hoping that that's this year. Very excited about it though.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it'll be really cool.
What is there anything that was a major entity here that's gone now that like you kind of miss or anything, or was it?
Okay, I don't miss it, but we had the giant hamster wheel here for a while.
Oh yeah.
So we had the hamster wheel. We do get asked about that sometimes, but it was a little nerve-wracking. It was very loud.
Yeah.
So personally, I'm okay with that being gone, but I know a lot of people look for it. One thing that's not up right this moment is the giant underwear. That's these like giant pair of like brief like tighty whities that are usually in beatniks. Those are actually out being cleaned right now.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I'd say more sentences working in this place that just would have never occurred elsewhere. But so those are being cleaned right now. It's not that I didn't know how popular those were. Those have been here since the beginning. So those have been here since 97.
Yeah. People ask about it though, like
oh my
all
gosh,
the time?
no. So we've sent them out a couple times, you know, over the years, happily, to get cleaned. But when they're gone, like we have people come in and it'll be, well, we've been taking family photos in front of the giant underwear for years. Like, where is it? And I'm like, I am so sorry. I really apologize. We had to get it clean though. So it's, you know, hopefully we try to not keep them down for too long and put them back up. But Bill, who commissioned the underwear and got those made, the artist that started Beatniks, he was kind of tired of it, and he was talking about getting rid of them. Like, you can't do that. I mean, you can't. There's people like are counting on these apparently. So I guess it's sort of a cautionary tale for being careful with what you make. You might be stuck with it forever.
Is that like, those are probably two of the big ones, like that people... That's a thing, right? People come here. It's like a whole family ordeal. I know you talked about this earlier. Like you had your wedding on the 1st floor, but like,
I did.
Do people do that, right? Like ask for stuff like that, like to have ceremonies here. Stuff. I know there's this, but
no, we do have within the museum. We have 2 event spaces. We have the vault room on the 2nd floor. We use that for like weddings. There was a prom there not too long ago. We do like some corporate events, you know, people rent out the space. And then on the 3rd floor in Architecture Hall, right now that's being used as a exhibit space. We actually have a new exhibit going on right now. That's the Science of Guinness World Records. We brought that in. So that's been really cool. It's very interactive. You can like compete with your family and your friends to like try and break records, and it talks a little bit about the science that goes behind it. It's got a couple different categories like focus, endurance, and reaction time. So yeah, it's very interactive, very playful, which, you know, works for us.
Yeah.
But that's another space that we use sometimes for like events and things like that.
Yeah. I was gonna ask as far as like St. Louis, the city, or even the county, you know, because I know people think of St. Louis and it's actually mostly the county is like it's like the whole thing. Anyway, semantics. How do you?
It makes a difference in St. Louis.
It does. I know.
It's weird.
Oh, yeah.
I've been to other cities where it doesn't, and they think we're crazy, which
Well,
not
because you have
wrong,
the four
probably.
you have the four counties, you know, and you're like, it's way different there than it is
Yeah,
like right
absolutely.
here. Yeah. How do you guys get involved, like with the city, like the people, and then how do they get involved with you as well, like the outreach from them?
Yeah. So back when we first opened, or when they first bought the building before we even opened, it was, early to mid 90s. There wasn't a lot going on in downtown St. Louis. A lot of buildings were being torn down. A lot of buildings were being just like completely gutted. A lot of buildings were standing empty. So it's been really cool about going through like the archive for the history of the place, reading the articles. They talk about, no one's going to come down there. They don't even know what they're building. Like, there's no way. This just seems crazy. The first thing that they built, was the serpent fence that was outside. And, Gail was talking about how crazy it was that they spent all this money and resources on this super elaborate fence when there was nothing inside. But it was really important to them to, like, show that something cool was happening here, like, establish their space. So with that as the kind of background, St. Louis, the downtown area, has grown a lot since then, happily. And, we get hundreds of thousands of people coming to visit from all over the country every year. But for a while, so history of the museum's a little bit all over the place.
Yeah.
So it started out as a nonprofit. It became a for-profit in the early 2000s, where it was privately owned.
Mm-hmm.
And then now we're actually owned by Premier Parks, which is a corporation. So we've kind of been through all different types, which to say that during the privately owned era, we were a little bit siloed, where we really just kind of worked within our space. We didn't really reach out a whole lot to to other like institutions around the city and things like that.
Yeah.
We did more in the nonprofit era, and then now that we're in our kind of next phase, we're really working to, actually just got off a call with the Regional Arts Commission. We're going to work with them to work with for. I feel like I'm jumping around a lot.
No, you're good. You're good.
The City Night series, which is our 21 and up series that we do on the rooftop. So we do those like pretty much every other Friday during the summer. So we have like 21 and up evenings up there. We're working with them to try and, we're working with the Regional Arts Commission to kind of curate some of the artists and experiences and stuff like that for up there. Also right now we have Blessed by the Ancestors, which is a Black History Month it's an art show that we're doing for Black History Month.
Oh, okay.
And this guy, really talented local artist, Brock Seals, we reached out to him to curate it and work to bring in some other artists that he knows. So that's in Beatniks through the end of the month. So we're really trying to keep, we'll always keep building. I mean, that's who we are.
Yeah,
we need to anyway.
Yeah.
We'll always keep building. We'll always keep having, hopefully keep having really talented artists that work here. But I think it's also good to reach out and try and connect more with the St. Louis arts community, and, it kind of just benefits everybody.
Oh, yeah. Was it hard, like, I guess was it hard being a non-for-profit, like, in those years? Because I would imagine it'd be hard to upkeep this. I mean, this is such a large building. I can't imagine the upkeep on it.
They had a lot of other, I know they brought in a lot of tenants. It's one of the few things that I feel like is before my time,
Yeah.
So we ended up switching to for-profit, I believe, in 2001, 2002. So it's a little bit before I started here. But yeah, during the nonprofit, you had the board and everything you had to go through for that, and fundraising and all that sort of stuff. So, I just got a text message from my boss that hired me today is her 26th anniversary of working at the museum.
Oh, okay.
So we just posted about that. So people do stick around. And answering your question from earlier, people do tend to stick around here, which is, I don't know, it's special. But yeah, so that was definitely a little bit, it was a lot of work, as all nonprofits are.
Yeah. Another tricky one I wanted to cover during COVID. Mm-hmm. How was it when I mean, obviously this type of building, it probably got hit pretty hard or.
Yeah, we were closed for, I believe it was 3 months. We closed mid-March and we opened mid-June. And when we reopened, we really limited the amount of people. We had different sessions where you could come in and then kind of clean in between the sessions and things like that. As with the rest of the city, we had the mask mandates and everything like that. So, and then, eventually, happily, things started to reopen and we got back up to just having our regular operations.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was crazy being closed. That's the longest we've ever been closed. I mean, like obviously, but
yeah.
When we first closed, we thought it was only going to be we're like, oh, it'll probably be a couple weeks, and then everyone was surprised. But
and this is one of the hardest places too. Like at that point, everybody's the distancing and stuff.
Yeah.
It's meant to be close knit and moving, and everybody's touching the same type of stuff and all that.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the best parts about the museum is how interactive it was and how interactive it is, I should say, and how interactive and just hands-on everything is. And that's one of the greatest things about the museum, I feel like, is it encourages you to, go through and explore and touch everything and climb on everything and go down all these slides. And so it was just really, it was hard. But luckily we have a really good team here we were able to weather it.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I was wanting to know the part right now, how do you guys like, would you consider it expansion at this point, or would you consider you're just building internally stronger and stronger?
Yeah, that's a good question. Technically the Labyrinth would be, I believe, considered an expansion because we're not renovating something that was there already necessarily. That was not already part of the museum that you can go through currently. One of the great things so we have a lot of people come through here every year, obviously, and because it is so interactive and so hands-on over the course of the summer or in spring break, things get a lot of use. And then there'll be like, pieces of mosaic that get broken or stuff like that, just because, it's just time and wear and tear. Like anywhere. So then we'll use the slower months, like after Labor Day and before spring break. We're closed a couple days during the week, so we'll use those as times to go in and do repairs and do any different work we need to get done, any of these bigger projects. It's a better time to do that. But what's cool that since we're always changing and building, a lot of times we'll use those opportunities, like if a piece of mosaic gets cracked or something like that, we'll use that as an opportunity to, instead of just trying to make things exactly as it was, like depending on the space and the materials we have, we'll try and use that to, rework it and create something new in that area. So that's the part where you kind of rework a lot of the existing things. But yeah.
That's so cool. That's so cool. I guess my last thing I want to cover, has anyone ever approached you guys, or I guess maybe there are other ones, I don't know, like, are there anyone trying to do something like this in another location?
Yeah. Yeah. We do actually get asked that kind of, I'd say fairly often. People come in here and they see this and they're like, oh, I want to do this in my city, which is great. I mean, we love that. It's kind of one of those things though. It was sort of just this perfect storm of just timing where everything kind of worked out, where, you had Bob and Gail, they bought the building. St. Louis, unfortunately, was tearing down a lot of things, but we were looking for things to fill this gigantic space that they acquired, and because there wasn't so much going on downtown, I feel like we got a little bit more leeway than maybe some other cities that were doing more with the space or, just at a different place. So I don't know that something like this, it would be difficult to do something like this in New York or in, Chicago or some of these bigger cities that just might have more, I don't want to say restrictions, but it would have been a more active space. I mean, I feel like I don't want to say we couldn't do it now because we're still doing it, but it would be more difficult now, even now in St. Louis, than it would have been, I feel like in the early 1930s, 1990s. I've been here for so long. For ages. So, yeah, I mean, we have been approached, like, I don't know if you're familiar with Meow Wolf. They're like an immersive art installation. So there's been a lot. They approached us before they started building, and we talked with them. So there's a lot more immersive art experiences than there were when we started.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's definitely, I don't want to say a trend, but it's definitely more common now than it was when we first opened.
I think I've traveled a little bit, not a lot, but I've seen definitely in other cities where they do stuff kind of like this, where it's maybe one floor, one little office or whatever, where it's fun stuff. But like you said, I think it would be incredibly hard to duplicate or replicate anything to this extent,
Right. And I think a thing to remember too is, I don't know, I kind of have a bad habit of going into somewhere and I'm like, oh, the way that I'm seeing it is how it's always been, and I think that's pretty, you're like, oh, it's always been like this. Like when we very first opened the first floor, there weren't any, or very few, like mosaics down there. Those have all been added since we've been open. The outside part that you probably saw as you were coming in.
Yeah.
So there's like, I think that's 4 or 5 stories tall. It's just this massive, like,
the walk around spots.
Yeah,
right?
it's like there's 2 planes out there. There's these massive slides. There's a log cabin in the middle of it. It's this huge multi-story space that takes up most of the parking lot. That wasn't there when we opened either. That's all been built since we had our grand opening in 97. So it's definitely a continual process that we just always keep building and adding things, and reworking things. But yeah, it didn't just happen like overnight necessarily.
Yeah. I think that pretty much covers it. Everything I wanted to talk about. I learned so much.
Oh,
today.
good.
And is there anything you wanted to discuss before?
Oh gosh. City Museum is very special. Yeah. And, for me personally, just kind of all roads tend to lead back to City Museum. When I first came down to apply, actually, I couldn't find it because it was before I had a smartphone. So I was just like, I don't know, I give up. I can't find this place. I was like looking off I'd written down directions from MapQuest or something, and and I couldn't find. I know. So I got to Union Station and I hit a stoplight, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give it one more try. So I made a U-turn, came back, and I found it, and then 18 years later. Yeah, it's crazy that just these really small things. But yeah, even I moved up to New York for a little while. I would still come back and work summers here. A lot of my projects ended up being City Museum related for school. So it's just there's just something so unique and special about it, and it definitely kind of changes how you approach things, like just looking at materials differently and trying to figure out ways of using the space. So like this was a warehouse that we turned into whatever it is we do here now. We've got a wall made of like third pans that they use in like restaurants and catering. So we've got walls made of that. We've got walls made of glass bottles. We've got mosaics made of zippers and watch bands. So it's just, we kind of joke sometimes about using like City Museum as a verb. You look at something and you're like, oh, we'll just City Museum it. We'll just build a wall out of it. Another good line that Bob had was, anything's a brick if you have enough of them. Oh. So we put that into practice a lot. So it's a way. I think the best versions of the museum is when, you see something that's just really, you wouldn't necessarily expect, and kind of makes you look at things differently when you go kind of back out into the real world, as it were.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. It's things that seem like they would be impossible, but we've made happen. So
That's inspiring. No,
yeah,
that's
I think so.
inspiring.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. I thank you, Maria, for your time. I thank you so much for letting me come out here today and check it all out. I'm going to post pictures. I'll post all this stuff. And
You are legally obligated to go out on the slide, just so you know.
oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm scared. Thank you guys for listening to another episode. I really hope you enjoyed this one as much as I did. Have a good day.